Welcome back to my channel and podcast. In this episode, we're looking at a channeled message on the divine masculine and divine feminine energies. We have a conversation about this, and it's been very profound, and the insights are amazing. So, if you are interested in actually going deeper, you will see in the description a link to other channeled videos that I've done and a link to a sample vibration shift session, which is something that I do on a generally weekly basis with my members from all over the world. And it helps us to start the day, start the week in a higher vibration, and it spills over into all the other areas of our life, our business, our families, our relationships, our health. And so I wanted to give a little sample of that because it's so important as we are in this process of awakening and growing our consciousness. And oftentimes it's the starting point of some deeper healing so that you can connect more easily and consistently with your intuition, with your higher self and insights and guidance. So I hope you enjoy that. Complimentary free training, and enjoy this episode. If you do like it, definitely subscribe to the channel, like, comment, and share this with friends who will benefit. So I'd love to hear your ideas of the divine feminine and divine masculine energies as well. Enjoy. So we are having a conversation, like a continuation conversation around masculine and feminine energies within us. I'm Serenity Iris, so welcome to the channel or wherever you're catching this. And I have my good friend Jamie here, and we have been doing a few things together. We've been having pretty interesting conversations about exploring both the polarity and then coming to the middle. So for today, looking at the divine masculine, divine feminine energies. And we've also been channeling on this theme and many others as well. So we'll see, maybe we'll do some live channeling as well to gain a higher, different perspective than just what we're coming up with from our own personal experiences. But it's a really interesting thing. I was editing part of a conversation that was really raw. I haven't posted it yet, and I may or may not. I will see, because I had like wiping my face with tissues. It got pretty emotional, and it was in response to just a lot of things that are happening in the world today, and just how it's personally and energetically affecting me. And I used to never really bother with male or female, masculine, feminine energies or politics or anything like that, but we're just seeing so much more polarity these days, and there is a really great wisdom with that. It's so that we can explore the richness of the diversity of all kinds of experiences from different perspectives. Of course, there's the shadow masculine, shadow feminine that plays out, but I believe we're coming into a time where much more of the divine masculine, divine feminine are starting to emerge and come out, and this idea of being in the middle from a unified perspective has really been calling and touching my soul these days. So that's where I felt like it would be good to start and open this conversation. But yeah, thanks for sharing your time with me.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome, awesome. So have you have you noticed kind of different energies playing out in your own life, or maybe the lives of other people around you, where they're clearly working through some things, maybe some beautiful lessons are coming their way or your way. It's like, okay, and it's giving an opportunity to really examine how the masculine and feminine are playing out in your life or their life?
It seems like a big common theme recently has been kind of dealing with people's agency and their ability to speak up for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
to and not only their interaction with other people, as far as like being able to like being able to deal with uh, what they need to say to another person, but actually what they're how they trust themselves, how they hear themselves, how they feel about what they're saying. So their agency outwardly as well as kind of inwardly.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not exactly sure. Maybe you can shed some light on this, Serenity. Like, where does that actually fall on that spectrum with the
Mm-hmm.
ability to have agency, to speak out and to be heard?
Mm-hmm. That's reminding me of how, for example, if a man is really in service and in the mode of providing, and this can happen with women as well, uh, but let's talk about the masculine. They can tend to not speak up for themselves or what they need because they're so in the mode of providing and giving, which are both divine masculine traits, right? Being the provider, the protector, giving, being of service in that way. And it's also important to be rooted in taking care of yourself, right? Um, and I find with the feminine, culturally, for a long time, there has been this expectation of um, like a like taking the back seat or a servitude, more the shadow, where um, the feminine expression or the voice hasn't been acknowledged or respected as much. So I think there can be the same thing around agency and speaking up for yourself, but it can come from different places, and not even just two different options, but many, right? It's very multifaceted. So yeah, there's a lot there. And so let's take the example of a woman. So just as a baseline, we all have, my belief is that we all have both divine feminine and divine masculine within us. And when we are uh, really comfortable with that, when we've integrated that, that's our healthiest, fullest expression of just who we are as spiritual beings here having a physical experience. So it doesn't necessarily mean, okay, well, men only have the divine masculine. We each have both, whether you're a man or a woman, um,
Right.
just as a baseline understanding. So then, like, for example, confidence is a divine masculine quality. And of course, women have or don't have confidence. Men will have or might not have some confidence. And we can both, men and women, can develop that through developing our innate confidence, developing our experiential competence that leads to confidence. And so that could be one aspect of it, but it could also be really honoring. Like it could come down to really honoring yourself and getting really comfortable and intimate with your own truth and having the courage to even admit it to ourselves. And that's the piece that was like so that was so raw in one of our previous conversations,
Yes.
which I may or may not share, but I'm leaning towards sharing it, but it was very raw, like um yeah, just admitting it first to ourselves. So if we don't even have that agency or comfort with ourselves, then how would we ever express that to anyone else? Or how would we ever expect anyone else to, we wouldn't. Yeah, no one else can express your truth for you. So Yeah,
Right.
what do you think?
Yeah, it's just the reason I brought it up is because it does seem to be, you know how sometimes we talk about with clients and people that we're talking with, there does seem to be these themes that come through. And most recently, the last couple days and maybe the last week or two, that has been a theme of like of agency, of being able to speak up
Hmm.
and believing in yourself and believing
Hmm.
in what you're saying is true, trusting yourself.
Hmm.
And it was it's also interesting that a lot of these clients are younger. They're like
Mm.
in their teens.
Wow.
And so generally speaking, what a lot of the souls that are kind of coming in now,
Hmm.
we're slightly off topic, but it's just that there is it does seem to be more a divine masculine energy is coming through with people that would be considered a woman or that identify as female, right? So coming in with a stronger sense of agency, with a stronger sense of dedication or purpose.
Hmm.
And then on the male side, there's more fluidity, right?
Hmm.
There is a greater balance of divine feminine and divine masculine in those younger souls.
Hmm.
And and so it's just interesting hearing this 18-year-old talking about like how it's so difficult for her
Hmm.
to kind of to still now find a place for herself, to find agency because she
Hmm.
feels it. She
Hmm.
feels like that this is how she is inside, but that she can't express it or that it's not accepted.
Hmm.
So I guess it's just, something that I've been observing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Which is why I've been interested in having these kind of conversations to just explore it for ourselves, for myself, right? Like
Right.
the women's movement led to a lot of good and important advances, yet like if we're cutting ourselves from the spiritual divine feminine, like it's not about a woman only being in her masculine, right? In sort
Right.
of competing, which is a masculine quality, um like the competition, the confidence, the work, doing the hard thing, um all of those can be brilliant, amazing, powerful masculine qualities, and we can experience that and express that as women, and we want to remember the divine feminine as well, which is the creativity, the emotions, the play, the joy, the flow. So I think it's really what's been happening is this like expression of one polarity or another polarity, and then there's going to be kind of like instead of a drastic swing way to the other side, um there ultimately, my hope is that it comes to the middle where we're like, oh, so we acknowledge that when, let's say, when a man has really healthy divine masculine expression for most of his day, but isn't, we don't want to encourage our little, our boys and our young men and men to be cut off from their feelings, because of course, like, men have deep feelings. And so we want to honor that part within ourselves, within our cultures, within each other, just like we would want to have that restorative, divine feminine within a woman, and have the hormones working really well, and then also acknowledge that, yeah, she's totally capable and can definitely rise up to any kind of challenge, and then honor and restore the divine feminine when that divine masculine energy is no longer needed. But I think there's a whole other level that I'm still discovering and exploring within myself, which is like it's new territory. It's like where it's not just one swing where I'm only in my masculine when I'm working and then only in my feminine when I'm like resting and doing nothing. That it's like this, almost like this oscillation moment to moment. Like I feel like that's where we are collectively moving toward. Does that idea make sense to you? So it's
It
it's
does.
not so like, wow, these polarized swings. It's like, ooh, okay, we're like, oh, we're in tune enough and sensitive enough to be like, okay, I can get into that state. I can get into that mode, um, regardless of whether you're a man or woman or have more of the feminine or masculine within you that you want to express, and that all of that is okay and it's really beautiful. And right now, for me anyway, it feels awkward and clumsy and can feel really emotional and just, uncomfortable at times. But yeah, what's your experience been?
Exactly. Like the balance is what's coming, what's key.
Hmm.
Understanding that, embodying it, being okay with it, and being like, yes, I accept this. This is part of me. We all have it. I mean, again, these physical forms are just temporary. Our souls
Hmm.
are of course have both. So understanding that, owning that, and using it to the advantage that each has is really like a great lesson. And I think like as a society, that's kind of what we're hitting. Like we're hitting a lot of roadblocks right now because of that. Like so much patriarchy is set up. So much of our cultural constructions are set up in a very, patriarchal mindset. And so
Hmm.
as we as a culture, we're coming down to earth with these greater understandings, this greater awareness, this greater spiritual awareness, and we're like, wow, well, this culture may not really be accepting me with everything that I want to be or with everything that I want to express.
Hmm.
And so that's really, I think it feels like one of the biggest challenges culturally that we're facing right now is being okay with that balance, finding it
Hmm.
and owning it because there's not a lot of support for that yet.
Hmm.
It's here,
Yeah.
but it's like
Hmm.
not fully present.
Hmm. So there are really incredible things that have come out of uh, male-led patriarchy, and there's a lot of shadow stuff that has
Hmm.
come from that as well. And the divine masculine provides such incredible structure and strength and protection and potentially great safety for the divine feminine of like the creative energy and the nurturing and that love and the emotion and the expression to to thrive. So I really see it as this beautiful combination, and both are equally essential. They're different, right? So this is where I remember, I mean, I grew up thinking, well, men and women, like we're basically the same. It's just our genitals are different, right? Which isn't quite like I've been learning that when we try to do that, it can produce a lot of inner conflict. It can actually produce physiological stress, because we're not the same. And it's important to understand the differences and to honor the differences. So we're talking about masculine and feminine, but we could be talking about any kind of cultural, societal, experiential differences, right? So to be like really honoring and to be like, oh, you have this amazing superpower strength. Uh, and I have this that I can bring to the table, and the combination of it can make something greater than us just alone. So that's what I'm feeling. I feel that I love that idea.
Yes. Embracing that duality.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. What do you think? Should we channel anything? Do we have any questions?
Mm. I'm sure I will think of some if we start. They always come through, right? It's a double-edged channeling here.
Yes. Yeah, you channel the questions and We can channel the answers. Okay, I think my dog is saying hello. I think I should give her a little snack. Gets hungry sometimes. So I can just pause this for a moment and then I'll be right back.
Okay,
Does that work?
I'll
Okay.
be here.
Okay, I'll see you in a few minutes. And
Okay.
if you want to stick around on Instagram, you can too, but it will be a few minutes. And I don't think I can pause on Instagram. So, yes, welcome back. All right. So we'll do a little bit of channeling, starting with the topic of the divine feminine and masculine. And we can just see where it
Okay.
goes. Yeah. Okay. Okay. We're ready.
All right. Thank you for being with us today.
My pleasure.
So I think we would like to hear about divine balance, about balance between divine masculine and feminine, and how do we embody that? If you could just give us kind of an overview of what that means to you, and then perhaps how we could embody that.
It's a beautiful question. In the microcosm is reflected the divine feminine and divine masculine, also in the macro. And so, starting with human life, where there's a cell representing the divine feminine that cycles through and is present and waits for the divine masculine expression to come forth. The cells meet, they come together and start to form something that either one of them could not form on its own. We're talking about the conception of human life, but this is seen in much of your world and lives, both in the physical and also in other forms of expression. So, with this as the starting point, understanding that there is no real separation, any separation that appears to be or is felt is more like information that is on a page and a portion of the page is covered from view. So you're not seeing the entirety of a message that's on the complete page. So it can be a certain perspective and focus on one aspect. Let's say it's the masculine aspect. And it's not that the feminine is absent, it is always present, but the attention may not be on it, and vice versa. You might see or experience a feminine energy perspective, and the masculine will be there too, but perhaps not to the full expanded perspective. So what is happening now, and there's still a continuation of the expression of the polarities, which is actually an important process so that both can be seen very, very clearly. We have seen the shadow of the masculine, the shadow of the feminine. And in that, an understanding and emerging of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, an appreciation and recognition of both the divine aspects comes much more easily and naturally when there is a state of calm and relaxation, when one is coming from a higher perspective. So encouraging connection with one's higher self, source, God, opens up an ease for this understanding. And with this understanding, as the polarities become really fully expressed, there comes a movement back toward the unification, to that oneness. Does this make sense?
It does. Yeah, thank you. And how, as we go through our daily lives here on Earth, where we're very much stuck, or at least perceiving the 3D world in a certain way, how do we go about utilizing that balance as we go through a normal day?
You are less stuck than you have been led to believe. This being on Earth is an incredible experience to enjoy your spirit expressed through your physicality. Moment to moment, you can observe the way you move your body. For example, there's the divine masculine, single focused, pointed, very driven toward a target kind of emotion, whether it's through an assertive, confident walking towards a point or driving toward a point, some kind of movement of your body in the direction of a target, for example. And then the divine feminine expression of that, where you may be in more of a flow, and there could also be some walking, but instead of a straight line, it could be weaving through different paths, taking the scenic route, exploring what is there and then what is here, taking in all of the different sights and the expansiveness of the widened view. For example, there's also the very active movement, which is the divine masculine, and then you have rest. And isn't it interesting that in periods of rest, for example, a man starts to build up his testosterone. So this is a beautiful example of both coming together. So you have that very restful period, which can be understood as the feminine or the yin energy, and then you have the building up of the masculine testosterone hormone, just as one small example. Just like in a full expression of creativity or perhaps emotion, there could be much that is built from the divine masculine to build something that allows for that full creativity and expression of the divine feminine to fully be expressed, and for someone to receive, whether it's a piece of art or music or beautiful production in a play, that creativity, then there's the outward expression, but then there's also the receiving of such gifts. So they really work together. And the separation, or the perceived separation, the delineation, is to help understand the different aspects. So it's not necessarily to be used to judge, but it's more to learn and understand from relating, from difference. Does this idea make sense, and how you can use it on a day-to-day level?
Yes. No, that makes sense. Thank you. And if we talk about some of the things that we had talked about earlier in our discussion, how do you see the souls coming in now to Earth? What does their balance look like? And is that different from what we've seen over the last couple hundred years?
We're coming into a time when, in many parts of the world, the containers for expectations of masculine and expectations of the feminine are not as rigid. They're in the process of being renovated. They're in the process of shifting, in a way of being rewritten, but perhaps more accurately described as remembering. So in previous times, the strength, for example, that was drawn from the divine masculine, at times in history, came from periods of survival. Not always, but when it comes from that place, there can be energies of scarcity, competition for resources, control, those aspects that are more of the shadow of the masculine. And it's not to erase the shadow of the masculine or the shadow of the feminine, but rather to be aware of both, so that, let's say, the masculine gets to work and provides and builds structure for there to be wonderful prosperity that's built, and then higher expressions of the divine masculine, the divine feminine can flow through. So, right now, in many parts of the world, there is this shaking up, this changing of the the previously held containers, and the souls are very attuned to this. And so if they are born into a family or born into a culture that insists on the older, more rigid containers, there may not be well, an ease at first, but there's much to be learned and gained no matter what the experience is for that soul and their family. Because every person right now is going through their version of what is happening collectively. And every person's individual experience is contributing to the greater collective awareness. So, what is happening is ultimately a beautiful thing. And there are different explorations of it. Some people trying to explore this at the densest level of physicality, and that is not where the fullest expression will be realized.
So you had mentioned earlier that these are being renovated. What does that mean that they're being renovated?
In order to organize and understand the the differences of the feminine and the masculine, there was much language, much societal organization, many things put in place for that. And for a time, it had served many. And there was also an emergence of a desire to change that understanding and structure. There are many examples, and one example would be the stifled feelings that came through women not feeling they could fully express their greatest potential, coming from a society that, in a certain way, had been working, but then it was felt it was not working because the fullness of that expression was not embraced. And because of the dominant energy being one of the masculine, both divine masculine and shadow masculine, there was an awareness from the women, and they came from a culture and understanding of how to navigate from a masculine perspective. So physically they were born into the world as women. So their physical expression was that of the female. What was really craved at the soul level, which we are getting to now, but in the early stages of that, of the women's movement, was any expression. And it took a very similar form to the masculine, just in the woman's body. So we have masculine societal structure, we have women really embodying and exercising their masculine side. And because there weren't clear guidelines for how to also nurture the feminine, this leads to many health concerns, at the minimum stress, difficulties sleeping, things that are felt on a day-to-day level. And ideally, there is a cooperation and a partnership of both women with men. And because there has been so much pain and judgment and labeling of the feminine being labeled as weaker, that aspect was not honored and not embraced. So we saw a significant polarizing shift within women, and within men, more of a feminization that's happening there. But really, the elevation of both, the full heightened expression of the divine feminine and masculine, and the coming together and integration of that within each individual and within society is the highest, most powerful expression.
Interesting. Okay. Hmm. Is there anything else that you would like to share about this, or any messages for the audience?
We've shared a lot of big ideas. We recommend a more personal exploration of this within your own life, noticing if there has been any denial or resistance of being too, whatever, too masculine, too feminine. And just to simply notice. And as you notice this within yourself, you will be able to see it in others as well. And if there are aspects to integrate, to heal, there are many souls who are able to help with this at this time. We encourage that.
What does that mean that there are many souls here to help at this time?
Many, many souls who have the gift of counseling, of compassion, of helping to restore this balance. So what might previously have been feared, for example, perceived weakness in the feminine, which is one way to look at it, could be experienced as profound softness and beauty. On the shadow side with the masculine, if there's strength and power that's used for things that are not good, to see that strength and power is essential for our day to day living and building, constructing incredible things in the world. So to start to notice from that higher place, both the divine feminine and the divine masculine. Thank you for your questions today.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Mm.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. That was so interesting. I couldn't remember the questions you were asking. It was very interesting because it was so like present moment, like it was just coming through. Okay. Be interesting to go back and listen through.
So you mean
Mm-hmm.
like your conscious mind couldn't remember?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Which was probably good, right? So that the conscious mind was just set aside for for a moment during the channeling.
Right.
But I could hear it because I'm conscious, like I'm aware of it usually when it's happening. It was coming through very like in the beginning, felt like a lot of masculine energy, like very clear descriptions of how things had been and how things are now. And then toward the end, I could feel like a softening. So that was the feminine, which was I could feel like the feminine was just encouraging that bringing togetherness.
Right.
uh, yeah.
And did it feel to you, like we were talking about balance a lot, did it feel like a balance for you when you were bringing through that energy? Or what did it ultimately feel like?
It was more masculine. It felt like 2/3 or 3/4 of it felt like it was almost like a certain clarity was needed to communicate some of these ideas.
Okay.
And and then toward the end it was more about like the felt sense of like what would that feel like within ourselves to perhaps soften into the awareness so it's not coming from a place of, oh, I have been done wrong by shadow masculine and that's caused me a lot of hurt and pain in the past. Like what if there's like beautiful, beautiful divine masculine qualities that are so important and necessary for this world and that are also a part of me. Um,
Right.
yeah, that kind of that embodiment side of it. So And that's what I've been personally working on. Because I
Interesting.
could remember, yeah, for sure. Like just remembering feeling like, okay, the way to cope and get things done is with the masculine. I didn't have this language when I was younger, but now I know now what to call it looking back.
Right.
And more emotional, sensitive side was like had been hurt in the past, right? It's vulnerable. It was young, it was hurt, and so I think I had shut that down because it was so painful. And of course it impacted my relationships and my perception of men um and even within myself, like not fully embracing the feminine. Um, I used to I used to think, well, I still don't really wear a lot of makeup, but um I was really not into like girly stuff. I liked wearing pants. Why would I want to wear a dress? You know, it was like too much. It was too girly, or I felt like it was too much to like enhance my face with makeup because I had some wounding there with the feminine
Was this
because
wounding growing up, like as a child?
yeah, just like if you were like it's that you know when someone is really in their when a woman is like beautifully in her divine feminine, she is so good with being seen, and she's just she is this embodiment of beauty, right? And she is
Right.
just so comfortable with it. And I wasn't. I was not comfortable with it. I didn't want to attract that kind of attention. I was like, yeah. So it's been a very interesting journey.
Mm.
Anyway, I
Wow.
hope that helps some people. Thank you
Yeah.
for like exploring these potentially not so easy to talk about topics in a time when there's so much polarization. But I do feel like I can feel it. People are more ready in there. I can see it within people that more of that like coming to the middle and that integration. Um, yeah, at least I feel it within myself and I see it in others around me as well. So it's beautiful. What's coming, what's emerging is beautiful.
Agreed. Yeah. I'm also seeing that in myself and with clients and other people.
Mhm.
It's time.
It is time. It is time. Awesome. Okay. I feel like I want to ask you next time about some divine masculine things.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm an expert on either, but
Well,
I'm sure we
you
can,
can research and you can
yeah.
prepare. Just giving you a heads up. I feel like that conversation would be really valuable.
Okay. That works.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Right. Oh,
All right, Serenity. Thank you.
all right. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.